Good morning, everybody. Man, I get some claps too. Come on, give me some more claps, man. I know it's hot in here. I'm gonna lose about 10 pounds before I get off this stage. That means I don't have to go to the gym today. I'm not working out today, but up here I'm just gonna be working out with everybody in here. I've heard so many things already this morning. I want to thank everybody. I want to thank just everybody for being here today, because today is a special day. Yesterday, I had an opportunity to be in a room with a Chicago Charity Challenge to be able to receive an award, Helping Hands, for my Jarrett Payton Foundation, an anti-bullying campaign that I started called Project No Bull. And to be in a room full of like-minded people, man, it was inspiring. So to understand what small business owners and be in a room with small business owners or people that are thinking about taking it to that level, I love being in the room with like-minded people. Today, I'm going to talk to you a little about everything. We talked about the engine, right? Small business, about the engine. See, what I'm going to be today is I'm going to be that gasoline that you put in your tank this morning. You know what I mean? So when you leave here, I want you to take things that I say today and use those into accomplishing what you want to accomplish. See, today we're going to talk about the 4 Ps. And the 4 Ps we're going to start with to really try to figure out our greatness and that we all have it inside of us. See, I was lucky enough to have spent 19 years with my father, Walter Payton, who is, I don't care where you come from, the greatest football player to ever walk the face of this earth, ever. Now, I didn't understand it back in the day, right? The 85 Bears, everybody still holds on to it. I was 5 years old at that time and thought Pele, the soccer player, was the greatest athlete ever. And I didn't care who my dad was, because he was the guy that was grounding me back in those days. So he wasn't as cool as everybody thought he was. But being around him and learning from him, I got a chance to learn some great things and some great stories. And each one of those stories, as I start to really look back, they all impacted me in some way. That has helped me, not just in the sporting world, but it's helped me in life and in pursuing these small business ventures that I've been, embarking on the last couple of years. And I got so much more to do. See, we're never a finished product. We're always a work in progress, each one of us. Because every single day that we wake up, we get an opportunity to get better. That we're blessed to see that sun that rises outside. We get a chance to do something special. So when I broke it down, I started going through all these old stories and how can I apply these to my life and then give them back to the people so they can maybe take something, a little bit of something out of one of these stories and take it in their walk of life, right? So we'll start with the first P, persistence. Get a chance to be around some great people. The door, someone at my house knocks on the door, so my dad hits this whistle. He's downstairs. He said, "Go get the door." So I run upstairs, I'm running, I get to the door, I open up the door, and as I open it up, I'm looking at this big, tall guy, right? I said, "I know you." And the man looks back at me, got this nice trench coat on, two guys that look like bodyguards standing next to him. He said, "Yeah, are you gonna let me in?" I said, "Man, you Michael Jordan, man." And Mike looks back at me and he says, "Yes, I am." And only I say what I said next. "Man, you missed those free throws the other night, man. Y'all could have won," right? It had this expression on his face. I've never seen it. Just looked at me like, is he really talking about me, 23? And as soon as I was about to get one more word out, my dad came by and gave me that forearm shiver that he used to use in the game. Like, "Boy, you better get out of here." And as I looked at him, Mike comes in. And the cool thing when I tell this story to the young kids want to know what kind of car Michael Jordan had when he came to my house. It was not a Bentley. It was not a Rolls Royce. Michael Jordan got out of a Geo Tracker. Y'all remember those? It was white with pink and fluorescent green blobs on the side. I have no idea how he got out of that, but it was amazing. He comes in my house, and normally, when our company came over, we never took their coats and put it in our coat room because my mom had her fur coats in there. And my dad was friends with Burt Reynolds. So Burt Reynolds used to send him leather coats every single year for Christmas. So what we did was we took our company's coats and we put it on a washer and dryer. So as we sat on the washer and dryer, I'm sitting there and I'm running around the house. I'm super excited. Michael Jordan is at my house. I'm like, man, this is what it's all about. So I hear that whistle again. They walk downstairs. I hear that whistle again. So I ran downstairs. I said, Dad, what you need? He said, I don't need anything. Mike needs you. Mike, what do you need from me? He said, hey, listen, man, Shorty, I need you to go upstairs in my jacket pocket and get the money that's in my pocket. I could do that, Mike. I got you. So if you guys would have timed my 40-yard dash at that time, it was about a 4:01. I ran upstairs, I hit the corner, and my baby sister at the time, who now, Brittany, who's on Chicago's Best on Sunday nights on WGN, she walked out, yes, to see something like, what is going on? And I came through, y'all, and I gave her the stiff arm to the face. Get out of here. Move. And I run through and I look in Mike's pocket and see he's got 5s and 10s and 20s and 50s. They're all rolled up in rubber bands. So I take the rubber bands down, I'm holding all the money, and I drop it onto the little table where they're about to play cards. And he said, listen, young man, I appreciate that. And he gave me $5. Now, $5 when you're 12 years old is a lot of money. I mean, you could go to school, and when you go to school, it's not just get some milk. You're sitting there making decisions like, how much is milk, miss? 25 cents? How much for chocolate milk? 35? Y'all want one? Make it 3, right? So I took that $5 and I dropped it in my piggy bank, super excited. And I'm like, man, this is a great day. And about 2 hours later, I hear that whistle again, and my dad told me to come downstairs. So I ran downstairs again. And as I'm sitting there, my dad's behind the bar where he was the dealer, so he was counting the cards, but he was also counting a bunch of money in his hand at this time. And I'm going, what's going on? But I looked over at Mike, and he had his head in his hand like this. And I said, what's going on here? I'm looking back at both of them. My dad's counting money. He's got that sweetness smile, like, and he looked at me and he said, hey, Mike, MJ. And MJ picked up his head and he picked out a $100 bill. And as he looked at the $100 bill, he's looking at Mike and he's laughing, and he goes to hand me the $100 bill. I said, Dad, what is this for? He said, son, I just stole all of Mike's money. Tell Mike thank you. I said, thanks, Mike. Ran upstairs and ended the night with $105 in my pocket, right? So after that moment, I'm upstairs hanging out, didn't go back downstairs, but ended up going to bed. But all through that night, I could hear my dad and Mike battling back and forth. They played everything from pickup sticks to Miss Pac-Man to pool. And we woke up that next morning, and I asked my dad, I said, Dad, why were you two up till 5 in the morning? He said, son, when you get 2 people like us in a room, nobody wants to lose. And I said, Dad, you have to lose. One person has to lose. He said, son, one day you'll understand. Fast forward a little bit, my dad takes me to Bulls and Knicks game. My dad was a closet Knicks fan, for everybody here. I don't know how that happened, but it was cool because when the Bulls would beat the Knicks, I could just enjoy myself and give him high fives, and he'd be broke down inside, so upset. Because he had to keep that, keep it up for Chicago fans. Like, yeah, I'm a Chicago. Nah, he was a Knicks fan. So after that game, Michael had 30 points, 8 boards, 5 assists, and he looks at me as he's walking out, and he looks at me and my dad, and he's like, downstairs? And my dad's like, yeah, we're gonna go meet Mike downstairs. So I'm like, what? I got my Bugs Bunny Jordans on. I'm like, my pants tight rolled back in the day, I'm like, let's go. And as I'm walking down the alley to go back to the locker room, I'm seeing all of my sports cars walk past me. I'm like, Charles Oakley, what's up? Pippen, what's up? I'll never forget, Pippen had on this, it was a gray suit and this white shirt, nice tie, big rings, and everything. I was looking at him like, this is what it's all about. Like, this is it. This is why I want to play sports. Patrick Ewing, what's up? Right? And as we're walking by, we get to the Bulls locker room, and I'm thinking that when I get to the locker room, Michael Jordan's gonna come out, fresh, nice trench coat, maybe the hoop earring. The door opens up, and Mike comes out with a cut-off t-shirt, a new pair of shorts, and a new pair of fresh J's. And I'm wondering what's going on. Why is he not dressed like everybody else? They're all talking about where they're gonna go eat, what kind of cars they're driving. And I was wondering, and he was talking to my dad for about 10 minutes. And then he stopped him. He said, Walter, listen, I got to stop you. Listen, we'll pick this up later. I have to go hit the weight room. And it was at that moment where it hit me what my dad was talking about. That weight room symbolized something that stuck with me. That Michael Jordan wasn't just going to accept the 30 points, 8 boards, and 5 assists. He wasn't there just to have a good game. He wasn't just there to go home and watch himself on TV like I would have, just see my good game. He was more about winning championships. His vision was bigger than just a game. It was about going the entire year and to win that championship, to have that crown and be crowned the best. See, the people that have the great ones, they're not satisfied with just games. They're satisfied for being the best at the end of the season. So I started to dive into it. We started looking at a weight room. What is a weight room? Anytime you walk into a weight room, you can't just walk into a weight room and say, oh yeah, I got bigger and stronger today, let me go home. No, you physically have to put in that work to be able to get better. You can't look at weights and go, yeah, I got stronger. You physically have to push weights off of you to get stronger. So I'm going to tell you on a daily basis when you wake up, and as small business owners, we know this. It is hard. It is hard. Sometimes we feel like we have the weight of the world on our shoulders. In some ways, I need to challenge you to figure out how to take some of that and turn that into success and turn that into getting where do you want to go and starting a business if you haven't already started one. I need you to be able to do that. But also understand this, in a weight room, see, I know we're guilty of this because I'm guilty of this. As a person that has, started the coffee every single day, I'm grinding, trying to make sure that I'm doing whatever I can. But I had to understand, to step back, that I can't do it all by myself. So I don't know if you want to look at this spiritually. I don't know if you want to look at this in the sense of just being being a business owner, but I'll give it to you both ways. When you walk into a weight room and you're lifting weights, the easiest thing to do is to sit there and do it by yourself. But the correct way to do it is to have somebody there to be able to spot you. Because when that weight gets too hard, sometimes you feel like you can't lift it off anymore. You don't want that bar to fall on you. But if you have someone behind you spotting you to help you pick that up, so if that's family members, if that's, your coworkers, if that's people that are working for you, you need to be able to rely on them to be able to help you in that time of need. Don't feel like you have to do it all by yourself. And if you want to look at it spiritually, I'm going to tell you honestly, listen, that's where my spirituality comes in, because I know I can't do it all myself. I know I can't do it all myself, so I know what I have to do. I have to look back into my faith and understand that, listen, when I feel like I can do it all and I think I can do it all, son, you can't do it all. You better have something to fall back on. I want to tell you guys, every single day that you wake up, figure out everybody's weight room's different. We don't all go to the same place. I go to Lifetime Fitness. You might go to Planet Fitness. Figure out what your weight room is on a daily basis, but I need you to understand that you can't always do it all by yourself. And when that weight on the world, it feels like it's on your shoulders, you have to figure out a way to be able to take that and turn that something to positive and know that you can lean on somebody else when you need to. Going back to the 90s were a crazy year in my life. I had Michael Jordan come over to my house, man. This is a cool time, Oh, before I get to that, I want to go back because there is something before. We talk about the next P, which is passion. And passion is probably the biggest thing when it comes to when I talk about the 4 Ps. It's the one that hits me the hardest. But every single morning that I walk out of my house and get into my car to reverse, to go back out onto the street, I physically have to be able to put the car into reverse. Nobody has ever done that for me. I don't know about where you guys park your cars, but you'll get what I'm saying. No one's ever taken their hand and put it in reverse for me and say, okay, now you can back out. I have to physically do that myself. And then I have to look back behind me because I live in a neighborhood with a lot of kids and make sure there's nothing behind me because I don't want to hit anything. And then once I get to the street, I have to physically put that gear shifter into drive, and I have to drive forward. And I started to think about it, and I started saying, this is the gear shift theory. Because when I start thinking about passion, the one thing is that physically nobody can do everything for you. You have to be able to ask help, but it has to be you that wants to start it. It's you that has to turn on that car. It's you that has to get up in the morning to get out of the house. And when I look at it, I was like, man, and looking back, people say, oh, you don't look back. Well, sometimes you have to look back. You got to look back and see what's behind you and where you came from. You have to look back. You don't want to hit anything, but once you get to that street and you put it in drive and go forward, not only do I want you to go forward, I want you to be able to use your heart as that GPS to get you to where you want to go on a daily basis. Keep your heart something that gets you to where you want to go, because this next story is the reason why I speak and the reason why I do what I do, because my dad came to my room and I'm in my room jamming out to, don't judge me on my musical preference either. I was jamming out to Pearl Jam in my room, right? And I was headbanging. As you can see, I got no hair. But I'm in there I'm going on like this, jamming out air guitaring. And you know that time with that moment where you feel like you sound good? I mean, probably people can sing here. I can't sing. And you think you sound good, and you close your eyes and you just, yeah, you know what I mean? And that person comes out and is staring at you, and you got your eyes closed like, yeah, oh my goodness, why? You startled me. Well, that was that moment. I'm in my room, Dad knocks a couple of times, I can't hear him, but that third time, since it was, my room but his house, he picked the lock. And he's standing in the doorway with this red trench coat on, and he's looking at me, and I did that awkward turn where I was doing the head banging and turn, and as I got to the looking towards the doorway, he's looking at me. He said, son, what are you doing? I said, Dad, it's Pearl Jam. He said, who? Now, y'all have to understand, my dad only listened to Luther Vandross. I mean, that was it, all right? And smooth jazz. Some of this headbanging stuff, he had no clue what was going on. He said, son, who? I said, dude, it's Pearl Jam. And he said, what? You call me dude? I said, oh, man, let me rewind back real quick. And I told him, yeah. He said, son, don't worry about it. Get your coat, let's go. So I get my coat. We start driving. We get in the car, the Jeep Cherokee Silver. We start driving, and I'm having a great time. I'm enjoying myself. I'm like, yeah, where are we going? And my dad had a couple of establishments. He had 34s. He had Studebakers. He had some places. Oh, I see people shaking their head, maybe frequent those places back in the day. And normally we would go there towards Schaumburg, and that's where we would go to get something. But my dad ends up pulling into Toys R Us. And we get to Toys R Us, and I'm looking at all these cars outside with the brake lights and exhaust, and I'm like, what's going on here? I'm not getting this because it's 5 days before Christmas. Why are people outside? They should be shopping for their gifts. And he says, son, get out the car, let's go. So I'm walking in, the door opens up, and as it opens up, I see these 4 people standing there from Toys R Us with smiles on their faces, with carts in their hands, and they're looking at me, and I said, Dad, what are we doing here? He said, son, listen, I'm going to tell you something. I shut down Toys R Us for an hour. I said, huh? You know what kind of juice you have to shut down Toys R Us for an hour, 5 days before Christmas? I said, okay. He said, son, listen, my credit card is on file. Listen, go with these people and get whatever you want in this place. I said, what? Hashtag shopping spree. I looked at those 4, I said, you 4? Come with me. We hit every aisle you can imagine. I went down and got basketballs. I got baseball bats. I didn't even play baseball. I got myself a tennis racket. I didn't even play tennis. And I got myself a tennis racket. I looked at the lady and said, how do I look? She said, you look great. I said, I probably need some wristbands and a headband, huh? She said, yeah, those are in aisle 2. I said, let's go. And I'm getting everything that you can imagine. And for myself at that time, I had a raggedy bike. But living in South Barrington, I couldn't be riding down the street, Mudhang Road, with a raggedy bike, because people look at Walter, like, that's Walter Payton's kid on that bike? Man, they must be having some hard times over there, man. So I got myself the black bike with the black riding gloves, and the black helmet so I could look fresh on the streets of South Barrington. I had to. But that moment, though, the one toy that I was looking for, these kids now have the Xbox One and the PlayStation 4. The hottest game console out at that time was Nintendo 64. And you had to have, the game was Mario Kart. If you didn't have Mario Kart, friends weren't coming over to your house. So that moment when I walked down that aisle to see where the game was, it was like one of those old love movies, Gone with the Wind. I mean, I hit that, it was slow motion. I walked down that aisle like, yeah. And that 64 had a blue aura around it was saying, buy me, buy me. I remember getting there and then picking it up and putting it into the basket, just excited. At that moment that I was getting all my toys, my dad bought a bunch of footballs. He bought a bunch of footballs and went outside because there were some angry people that were outside waiting for an hour. And my dad told me this story, the little intro story, I had to give it to you. This lady was sitting there in her car yelling at her husband, Frank, Frank, you better go in there and figure out what's going on. And she's yelling at him. My dad walked up, knocked on the door. I'm going to tell you. Frank, look who it is. It's Walter Payton. Oh, my goodness. Now, you see what I did, right? You see what I did with the window, right? Oh, my goodness, Walter, how are you doing? Frank, it's Walter. Oh, where's your camera? You never had your camera on you. She went off on him, right? Dad gave all these footballs. It was super cool. And I'm in there hanging out after he gave them all out. And I'm walking down, and he comes over to the loudspeaker. He says, son, don't forget to get something for your sister. So I went to every Barbie aisle. I got my sister every Barbie and Ken accessory known to man back in that time. And so at that time, I'm getting everything. We go to check out. And it's that moment that we all love, no matter what store we go to. That one store where you beep. You know what I'm talking about, right? You watching it just on the beep. And I'm watching all my gifts just go into bags. And I'm excited. I can't wait to get home. My birthday's the day after Christmas. I'm December 26th, so I'm going to at least get to open up something tonight. But that moment where I think everything's going, we're throwing stuff into the Jeep Cherokee. And then my dad took a right out of Toys R Us, and normally we would take a left to go home. And we started driving by Woodfield Mall underneath 53, and I'm thinking the only thing left we could do was probably go eat. And I knew where I thought we were going, Portillo's. Yeah, give me some of that chocolate cake. And as we pull up by Portillo's, I'm like, yeah, Pops, where are you going? I'm hungry. Getting all those toys made me hungry. And he kept driving. And he got down to this apartment complex. And he looked at me, he said, son, get out. And I said, Dad, what do you mean, get out? For what? He said, son, get out and open up the trunk. I said, Pops, all my toys are in there. Brittany's toys are in there. They're going to fall out. And those who have seen that picture of my dad sitting on the sidelines with a Jerry curl, the Ruse headband, and that stern face, he gave me that. I said, well, you know what? You don't look happy, so I'm going to get out. And all those toys that I thought were going back to my house, my dad found out that a couple of families in this apartment complex weren't able to have Christmas. So it was at that moment when I figured out what my passion was. I've never had that feeling before. I never got the tingly feeling like I got to see the joy on this family's face because of them being able to have Christmas. To do something for somebody that might not ever be able to do something for me changed my life. So everything that I do now is judged on that feeling. Because when you're passionate about something, when you love something, you'll never want to see it end. It's what we do on a daily basis, isn't it? As people, we get up every single morning doing what we do because we love what we do. And when you love what you do, it's really not a job because it's what you love and it's your passion. And so I base everything off of that. That first time when I got down on my knee to ask my wife to marry me, baby, will you marry me? I got that tingly feeling. I said, this is right. 3.5 years ago when I held my little peanut head son in my hands, I looked at him, I said, this is my son. I got that tingly. I said, this is him. Junior, I love you. And me and my wife are expecting our baby girl in 7 weeks, so I'm super excited about that. I've done some cool things, but being a dad is the coolest. It is the coolest thing. But I get that tingly feeling about everything, and I know you know when it's something special. When it's something special to you, you'll do whatever it takes to make it happen. For all of us, I'm even speaking to myself because I have to listen to myself speak sometimes to understand what we have. Man, that greatness inside of us, and when you have a passion for something, man, they always say, man, you'll never do something, you'll never be great at something until you have a passion for what you do. Well, when you're passionate about something, I know we all are in this room, make sure that you get that tingly feeling. And when you do, and if you do have that feeling, man, you got to do whatever it takes to see anything through, even when we have those hard days. I started to think about how, things change in, practice. They always say practice makes perfect. Well, the next P is practice. Well, I don't know if practice makes perfect. I'll tell you this, practice, get you prepared. That's what we do. We practice for the game. And when you get in the game in the sporting world, you can practice for the game all you want. The game's not going to be perfect. Things are going to change. Things always change. And we have to be ready. That's what practice does. It gives us the opportunity to have those certain situations so we can go through everything, exhaust ourselves through whatever can happen so coach knows that when we get in this, listen, this is what we're going to do now. We did this in practice now. It's going to get you prepared. sitting in my house back in the day when we lived in Arlington Heights. That's when my dad was in the height of his career. And his greatness had nothing to do, he was physically gifted, but he was 5'10" at the most, 200 pounds, coming from Jackson State. He wasn't supposed to, from the SWAC, he wasn't supposed to do what he did. Nobody ever gave him credit for what, listen, he should have won, maybe could have won the Heisman, but he went to a small black college in the South. This dude's not, he'll come in, he won't do anything. Man, I watched him over the times as I grew up to watch what he did, and I'll never forget those days sitting there watching TV when you had to click at the channels, you know what I mean? And I watching TV, and the weather lady would come on and be like, well, we're gonna send it to Cindy. Cindy was like, thanks, Bob. Well, if you can see right now, it's a summer day here in Chicago. Heat index is about 105 degrees out, so please, if you don't have to be outside, stay inside. Maybe have a glass of orange juice, or maybe even some lemonade, or sit by a pool. And my dad would be back cooking breakfast, and he'd be like, all right, Connie, I'll see you later. It's time to go to work. And I said, Daddy, did you not hear what she said? She said, it's so hot outside, you can melt by the time you get outside. And at like 5 years old, his nickname Sweetness, I thought he was like he was made out of candy, for real. I said, Pops, you can't go outside. And my dad would go to this hill. And y'all know about the hill. He would go to this hill and run up this hill when people told him not to, when the news was saying you should stay inside, my dad was going out working. So when everybody was telling him he couldn't do something, he made sure he would go out and work. And so we talked about practice. Practice is a big deal, but I'll tell you this is what I get about practice, is that when you practice hard enough and you put yourself in situations that you've never put yourself into, guess what? It gets you ready for the game. There's a video that you could go and Google right now after you get done today about Walter Payton, the Hill, and you'll hear something that will change your life. My dad was serious when he said this. The man said, Walter, I want to know, your workouts are like kind of like the Navy SEALs. Can you explain them? And he said, I can explain them in one word, but then you're going to ask me to explain something else. But basically what I try to do is, and I'm sitting here watching this video a couple years ago, I'm like, what is he going to say? And he said, basically, I try to kill myself. I said, let me rewind that back a little bit. What did he just say? He said, man, he worked so hard. He put himself to the brink of death during his workouts in the summertime. So when he got to the games, it became easy. So when he got there, he was already prepared for that moment. So when they said back in those days, and anybody that watched those teams back in the 70s, it was Walter left, Walter right, Walter up the middle, because they didn't have anything else. And he could have tapped out, but never tapped out. Because why? Because he said, listen, how many times is this? Walter, we're going to give you the ball again. All right, let's go. Because everything that I did in the summertime, there's nothing worse than what I did in the summertime. But he got himself prepared for everything in those games. So whatever was thrown his way, he was ready for that opportunity. And I think that's where when we look at being a small business owner, you never know what's going to happen. But putting ourselves in practicing as much as possible and being there and doing everything that we can like we are today to find out as much as we can, it will get us ready for anything that we have to do down the line. So any situation we're thrown into, we're prepared for that. We're preparing ourselves today. Today. Yes. Today is the day to be able to answer whatever questions you have. They need to be, don't leave until they're answered. Today. That's what I used to do. That's where I went wrong back in my day. I was that kid, man, I was a great athlete, school, Teachers would be like, you need some extra help? Nah, I'm good, and walk out. Well, that's on me. If I don't get the answers I need to get, that's on me, because listen, nowadays I'm asking every question possible, because everything that I'm into right now, the beer and the coffee, the jewelry, I didn't go to school for any of this. So I'm learning from somebody. I'm sitting down taking notes from everybody that I meet, every person that I meet. If I don't have a business card, I'm taking a business card. And that person, when I take that business card, they're going right, the ones in this pocket right now, going right into the database. This is what we got to do. Today, take advantage of what we have today. And the final P that I'm going to give you is being present. And showing up for those opportunities, right? And being there to be able to open up for our greatness. Showing up and being there, being present for that moment. It's kind of crazy because I started to look at it and you think about the times, and I gave you some stories about Jordan and my dad. This last story has nothing to do with anybody famous. It just has to do with me. My teacher, Miss Anderson, she's one of my favorite teachers back at Grove Avenue Elementary School. She used to make the best, I'm talking about the best cupcakes. Like, I'm talking about the best cupcakes. And so I remember those days when she would bring them, and I'd be so excited. But one day I wasn't sick. I just wanted to stay home and watch Thundercats and eat my mom's spaghetti and cheese and eat Twix bars. And I remember going to school the next day, and Johnny was like, "Hey, man, guess what you missed yesterday?" I'm like, "What?" Miss Anderson brought in those cupcakes. And it was like something hit me. I was like, "Oh." I almost started crying. I was so upset. So to keep it short, man, to keep it real short, you never want to miss out on an opportunity, especially on those days. And I know we feel sick sometimes. We don't feel like getting up, but we have to be there. It's so hard for us not to be there because guess what? Anytime that we're not there as a business owner, like for myself, my wife said it yesterday. She said, my husband never wants to say no. He wants to be at everything. God bless her, and I love her so much because she understands, like, she's the person that's like, listen, you don't stay home. You better get out there. She pushes me because she knows, like, listen, if you don't, you might miss out on an opportunity to meet somebody special. You might miss out on something special. And my dad, I look back at his career, and the best game he ever had, the best game he ever had was on a day he had 105-degree temperature. On a day where he could have cashed it in and been at home. And his teammates would have been like, "Walt, you good? We got you. Take some Theraflu." They said he was in the locker room and he was sitting there with towels on him because he was shaking and shivering, and went out and rushed for 275 on a day where he felt like he shouldn't even have been anywhere. He should have been in the bed. So if he decides not to cash it in, he might not ever have a 275-yard game. That stood for a long period of time, but on his worst day, he had his best day. Never miss out on an opportunity, because if he didn't get up out of the bed, he would have missed out on that opportunity. And I started to see what it meant to some of these great people like Jordan and my dad. They didn't want to miss out on one moment, because it wasn't just about the game. It was about leaving some type of legacy, to have something to leave that lasts forever. You ask me right now, what's most important to me? It's not about the money. It's not about the fame. I don't care about any of that. All I want is that I see that now every single day, since 1999, November 1st, someone has talked about my father every single day. Every day. That's a legacy. He left something. And it had nothing, most of the time it has nothing to do with football. It's about the person that you meet. Well, all of us, we get an opportunity to meet people in our community. We have to leave some type of legacy in our own communities. We're looking at us. We talk about the engine. We are the engine. We are building something. We need to be able to build something for our communities. I told you, listen, y'all the engine. I just want to be that gas to put that fuel in you so you can keep going. I want you guys to be able to keep going. So to sum it up, listen, I know you got to be persistent. We got to have that weight room and figuring out, even when things feel like this dragging you down, please. Sometimes I need you to have somebody to help you. I know you got people around you. If you need help, ask for help, because that's why you're here today, right? Okay. The second thing, we talked about passion. If you have a passion for something that you do, you'll never see it end. You'll do whatever it takes to make it happen. Practice. Doing and getting ourselves ready for our opportunity, but working so hard even before we get there, so when we get there, we're ready for anything that comes our way. And the last thing, being present. And like I said, just about that cupcake, and you could tie it in with sweetness as well. Sometimes we don't want to miss out on our chance to have something sweet. All right? I appreciate you guys for having me here and listening to me talk, but I'll tell you this, today, take and absorb as much as you can today. There were some great people here, and I look forward to being able to talk with some of you. And I just want to tell you, like I always say, #BeGreat, and we all have greatness inside of us. Sometimes it takes just a little bit of hard work to find it. All right? God bless, and thank you very much.